Alright, so what we're working on today is double angles, chapter 5.5. It's actually a complicated section, but I'm going to break it down into a few parts. So we'll do some problems today and some problems next time. Alright, you'll find these formulas on page 381. I have them down here. So when you have sine of 2u, it gets broken down into 2 sine u cosine u. When you have tangent of 2u, it breaks down into this. 2 tangent u over 1 minus tangent squared. And take my word for it, when you have a tangent of 2u, the problem's kind of complicated. And then cosine of 2u, you have 3 options. You can change it into cosine squared u minus sine squared u. You could change it into cosine squared u minus 1. Or you could change it into 1 minus 2 sine squared u. Now, it doesn't matter which one you choose, you'll get the same answer eventually. It's just one might be harder than the other. Okay? So, here's our first example. Solve two cosine x plus sine of 2x equals 0. Okay. Chose the easy one to start you off with. Okay. We have cosine and sine, so it's kind of hard to work with. So we have to use the formulas. So see this 2x, we're going to use this formula up here. Alright, so let's go ahead and make that change. 2 cosine of x plus 2 sine of x cosine of x equals 0. Okay, so now we look into what we did before. I have a plus here, so I'm going to factor. What do these two things have in common? And you should notice that they both have a 2 cosine of x. So I'm going to factor that out. If I factor that out of here, I'm left with the 1 plus, if I factor 2 cosine of x out of here, I'm left with sine of x equals 0. And now we go ahead and solve. 2 cosine of x equals 0. 1 plus sine of x equals 0. Okay. Divide by 2, divide by 2. Cosine of x equals 0. Where in our unit circle does cosine of x equals 0? Cosine is 0 at pi over 2 and 3 pi over 2. So x equals pi over 2 plus 2n pi, and x equals 3 pi over 2 plus 2n pi. For this one over here, minus 1, minus 1. Sine of x equals negative 1. So I need to figure out where sine equals negative 1. So back to my unit circle. Sine equals negative 1 at 3 pi over 2. So this one would be x equals 3 pi over 2 plus 2n pi. Alright, so if you notice, these answers are repeating, so I'll need to write it twice. Okay? So I could just circle those two as my answer. Okay? Let's go to our next example. And then this one, I'll show you guys what happens when you have cosine. Okay, so what I want you guys to know is that since this is a 2x, okay, I can't factor out a cosine. Okay, you cannot do cosine of x and then have this as 2 plus 1. Okay, it won't work like that. Alright, so we're going to use our formula up there. Now, which one do I want to use? I don't really want to use this one because it has sine squared. And if you look at our problem, there's no sine, and I don't want to have mixed trig functions. Same thing with this one. This one also has sine. So I don't want to use that one because I don't want to have sine and cosine. So I'm going to use this one, 2 cosine squared u minus 1. So cosine of 2x is 2 cosine squared x minus 1 plus cosine of x equals 0. Okay, if I rearrange this as 2 cosine squared x plus cosine of x minus 1 equals 0, I'm going to end up using this diamond to factor. This is my a, b, c. So I'll have negative 2 on top, 1 on the bottom. So this becomes 2 and negative 1. Don't forget to divide by a. So this answer becomes cosine of x plus 1. And this one becomes 2 cosine of x minus 1 equals 0. Okay, so now I separate them. Solve for this. Cosine of x equals negative 1. Solve for this one. Cosine of x equals 1/2. Okay, so my unit circle, where does cosine equal negative 1? Cosine is negative 1 at pi. Where does cosine equal 1/2? Cosine equals 1/2 at pi over 3, 5 pi over 3. And 5 pi over 3. Okay, they're all 3 different answers, so I get 3 different answers here. So after looking at these few examples, you should be able to answer questions 7 through 13 on page 388. Now I'm gonna warn you, 13 is kind of hard. Okay, that one has tangent. All right. All right, so try those, and then when you're done, go to the next example, and I'll show you how to do the next set. Sorry, the next video.